Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallow, hallow Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallow, hallow Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallow, hallow Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallow, hallow Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there's none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we We always win. You're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hello, Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hello, Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome one. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome one. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hello, Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hello, Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing halal, halal Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing halal, halal Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome one. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. We know it is the evening, but I want to say shalom, shalom, shalom to those of you that are tuning in on this great Shabbat. I want to say Torah for tuning in and being with us. I truly want to give the Abba praise for all that he's doing, all that he's done, and all that he's yet going to do for bringing us back into the city, that we are able to fellowship with you and you at this time. Once again, we do want to give praise to the Abba for allowing us to come through Passover and come through the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Truly a time of celebration, commemoration, and a time of reflection. So let's give him praise for just that experience. Not only that, but we also celebrate the union of Deshawn and Valerie at that time during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. We appreciate the Abba for what he's doing, what he's done, what he's yet going to do. We are truly excited about all that he has done and all that he's bringing to us. I pray thus far that your week has been baruch by the Abba, and if not, that before this over, that the Abba will say something to your ruach that will encourage you to keep pushing and to keep believing and trusting in him. Once again, we do give praise to the Abba for yet one more opportunity to give him praise and to celebrate and to commemorate a time of rest. And it is so.
And it is so.
We're going to begin on this afternoon with the Baruch of the Torah. Repeat with me, Baruch Yahuwah.
Baruch Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch one.
Baruch is Yahuwah.
Baruch is Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch one.
For all eternity.
For all eternity.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme one.
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who selected us from all the peoples.
Who selected us from all the peoples.
And gave us his Torah.
And gave us his Torah.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme one.
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
And implanted eternal life within us.
And implanted eternal life within us.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Now we will have the reading of the Ten Commandments done by Mattathias Yasharal. And it is so.
And it is so.
Revelation 5, verses 6 to 22. Aleph, I am Yahuwah, your power, which brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim from the bed of slavery. Bet you shall have no other power before me. You shall not make you any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in Shemayim above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the mind beneath the earth. You shall not bow down yourself unto them, nor serve them, for I, Yahuwah, your power, am a jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the Abbas upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that hate me and keep my commandments. Gimel, you shall not take the name of Yahuwah your power and falsify it, for Yahuwah will not hold him guiltless that takes his name and empties it. Dalet, guard the Sabbath day to set it apart, as Yahuwah your power has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah your power. In it you shall not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your ox, nor your ass, nor any of your cattle, nor your foreigner that is within your gates, that your manservant and your maidservant may rest as well as you. And remember that you were a servant in the land of Mitzrayim, and that Yahuwah your power brought you out of there through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore Yahuwah your power commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Hey, esteem your Abba Yim as Yahuwah your power has commanded you, that your days may be prolonged, and that it may go well with you in the land which Yahuwah your power is about to give you. Why? You shall not murder. Zain, neither shall you commit adultery. Ket, neither shall you steal. Tet, neither shall you bear false witness against your neighbor. You, neither shall you desire your neighbor's issue, neither shall you covet your neighbor's bed, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. These words Yahuwah spoke unto all your assembly in the mount out of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness for the great voice. And he added no more. And he wrote them in 2 tables of stone and delivered them unto me. And it is so.
And it is so. Chapter 6, Devarim chapter 6, verses 1 through 18. And it reads, these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahuwah your power commanded to teach you, that you might do them in the land where you are going to enter and possess it, that you might fear Yahuwah your power, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the yamim of your life, and that your yamim may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Yasharal, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily as Yahuwah power of your Abbas has promised you, in the land that flows with milk and honey. Excuse me. Shema Yasharal, Yahuwah our power, Yahuwah is Akkad. Hear, O Yasharal, Yahuwah our supreme one, Yahuwah is Akkad. And you shall ahab Yahuwah your supreme one with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words which I command you this yom shall be in your heart. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your bed, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. To fall, to what?
To bind to the mind.
To bind to the mind. Give the Torah access to your mind. And you shall write them upon the posts of your bed and on your gates. And it shall be when Yahuwah your power shall have brought you into the land which he swore unto your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Yaakov, to give you great cities which you did not build, houses full of all great things that you filled not, and wells dug which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. When you shall have eaten and be full, then beware lest you forget Yahuwah which brought you forth out of the land of Mitzrayim from the bed of slavery. Verse 13, and you shall fear Yahuwah your power and serve him, and shall swear by his name. You shall not go after the power of the people which are round about you. For Yahuwah your power is a jealous power among you, lest the anger of Yahuwah your power be kindled against you, and he destroy you from off the face of the earth. You shall not tempt Yahuwah your power as you tempted him in Massah. You shall diligently keep the commandments of Yahuwah your power and his testimonies and his statutes which he has commanded you. And you shall do that which is right in the sight of Yahuwah, that it may be well with you, and that you may go in and possess the great land which Yahuwah your power has given unto your, has sworn to your Abbas, and it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Let us have another song, please.
Be magnified, be magnified, be magnified. Come on, be magnified. Come on, be magnified. Be magnified. Be magnified in the heavens. Be magnified in the earth. Be magnified in the temple. Be thou magnified. Be magnified. Be magnified. Be magnified. Be magnified. Be magnified in the heavens. Be magnified in the earth. Be magnified in the temple. Be thou magnified. Be magnified. Be magnified. Be magnified. Be magnified. Be magnified in the heavens. Be magnified in the earth. Be magnified in the temple. Be thou magnified. Be thou magnified. Be thou magnified. Be magnified. Be magnified. Be magnified. Be magnified. Be magnified in the heavens. Be magnified in the earth.
let's turn our attention to the scroll of Yahush, the son of Nun. In the English rendering, it is known as Joshua 1, verses 7 and 8. We're going to read verse 7 and then we're going to recite verse 8. Verse 7 says, only be you strong, excuse me, and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the Torah which Moshe, my servant, commanded you. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. Now, we know this is directed, a specific direction unto Yahush, the son of Nun, but we can also take it and apply it to our own lives, so that we do not be distracted and we do not be swayed from following in the truth, wholeheartedly in the truth of Abba Yahuwah. Verse 8, I've tailored it to make it a personal confession. So let us repeat this together. Repeat with me. I will not let this scroll of the Torah,
I will not let the scroll of the Torah
depart out of my mouth,
depart out of my mouth,
but I shall meditate in it,
but I shall meditate in it,
Yom and Layla,
Yom and Layla,
that I may observe to do,
that I may observe to do,
according to all that is written in it.
according to all that is written in it.
For then I shall make my way prosperous,
For then I shall make my way prosperous,
and then I shall act wisely.
and then I shall act wisely.
Now look at your neighbor, tell your neighbor, and you shall act wisely, and you shall act wisely. Look at your other neighbor, tell your other neighbor, and you shall act wisely, and you shall act wisely. Now take your hand and place it over your heart and say, Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
Come on, Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
Come on, I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it's so.
It is given unto us to act wisely, and we can if we choose to. It is a choice, and I choose to. How about you?
Yes.
And it is so. All right, let us have another song.
Yahuwah, I lift your name on high. Yahuwah, I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. Yahuwah, I lift your name on high. Yahuwah, I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. Yahuwah, I lift your name on high. Yahuwah, I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way, from the earth to the day. My debt you paid, from the day to the grave, from the grave to the sky. Yahuwah, I lift your name on high. Yahuwah, I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way, from the earth to the day. My debt you paid, from the day to the grave, from the grave to the sky. Yahuwah, I lift your name on high. Yahuwah, I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. Yahuwah, I lift your name on high. Yahuwah, I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way from the earth to the stage. My death you paid from the stage to the grave, from the grave to the sky. You I lift your name on high. You I lift your name on high. I lift your name on high. You I lift your name on high. You came from heaven to earth to show the way from the earth to the stage. My death you paid from the stage to the grave, from the grave to the sky. You I lift your name on high. You I love to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way from the earth to the stage. My death to pay from the stage to the grave, from the grave to the sky. You I lift your name on high. You I love to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way from the earth to the stage. My death to pay from the stage to the grave, from the grave to the sky. You I lift your name on high. 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 You I lift your name on high.
You're worthy of all praise. You're worthy of all esteem. Praise him. Praise him. Hallelujah. Who are worthy is our King. And we do praise him. Mishley 15 and 8, the sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination, hateful and exceedingly offensive unto you, Yahuwah. But the prayer of the upright is your delight. Mishley 3 and 4. So shall you find great understanding and high esteem in the sight or judgment of Yahuwah and man. Ayah 33 and 4. The Ruach of Yahuwah hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life. Somebody say he's a life giver.
He's a life giver.
Yes, he is. Micah 3 and 8. But truly I am full of power by the Ruach of Yahuwah and of judgment and of might to declare unto Yaakov his transgression and to Yasharal his sin. And it is so.
It is so.
Excuse me. All right, Yehukin and Aleph 2, 5 and 6. Another one of our confessions. Yehukin and 2, 5 and 6. But whoever guards his word, his Torah, truly the Ahab of Yahuwah has been perfected in him. By this we know that we are in him. Verse 6, the one who says he lives in him ought himself also to walk even as he walked. How are we to know as to how he walked if we don't study his life? We will never know how he walked. And it is so.
And it is so.
Yehukin and Aleph chapter 5, verses 3 through 15. As a platform and a foundation to encourage us, encourage our hearts to believe and never give up on the Mashiach. Many have called him the Christ, but we know we do not call him the Christ. We call him the Mashiach. You have to understand Christ, Christos, means the anointed one. And we know he's not just the anointed one, but we know he's the son of the Abba. Right. And we know he is the Mashiach and that he is the Redeemer of Yasharal. And so it is important that we not lose the importance, or that we not lose or forget who he is. Now, many would say, is there really is it that important, or is there really that much relevance in a name? Absolutely.
Right.
It is very important that we understand that, and that we understand what is being required of us. It says, whosoever shall call on the name of what? Of the Abba Yahuwah shall be saved. And if you don't know what name to call upon, how can you be saved? You don't call, just using this as a reference, and this is not our my subject for Tiyam, but just to use this as a reference, and just to show us, you don't call the fire department when you need the police.
Right.
Or you don't call the police department saying, can I speak to a fireman?
Right.
You know exactly who you are calling for and who you are trying to make contact with. So it is important that we understand the name, because you have to understand his essence is in his name. And so if we call anything other than that, then who are we really addressing? So it is important that we understand that, very important that we understand who we are calling upon and why we are calling upon him. And so we want to follow along those things, because whenever you build a relationship, you want to build a relationship knowing that person.
That's right.
You're following me?
Yes.
Very important. You don't just say, hey, you, or, hey, you use slang names, people out in the street use those names. But when you find people that know people, no, they going to tell you their name. They street name may be, Ace, or, a gunner, or whatever, or a thumper. But when it all comes down to it, a person that really has a relationship with you are going to tell you, oh, that person's name was Bobby, that person's name was John, or that person's name was what are some of our names? Sean, Joseph, or some such, or of that manner. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And so, or his Ibram name, which is important, Mattathias, Yahukanan. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So it's important that we understand names are very important, because in the name, the essence of that person, you understand who that person is just by their name, believe it or not. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Okay. Verse 3. For this is the Ahab for Yahuwah, that we guard his commands, and his commands are not what? Difficult. Because everyone having been begotten of Yahuwah overcomes the world. And this is the overcoming that has overcome the world. Our what? Our belief. Who is the one who overcomes the world but he who believes that that Yahush is the son of Yahuwah. This is the one that came by water and blood. Yahush Mashiach. Not only by water, but by water and blood. And it is the Ruach who bears witness, because the Ruach is the truth. Because there are three who bear witness, the Ruach and the water and the blood. And the three are in agreement. If we receive the witness of men, the witness of Yahuwah is greater, because this is the witness of Yahuwah, which he has witnessed concerning his son. Verse 9 is very important, because the witness of Yahuwah is greater than the witness of man. Never ever let the witness or the lack of witnessing of the Abba's son be a deterrent to us believing and trusting in him. Because when it's all said and done, people say, well, we've been beguiled, we've been bamboozled, we've been tricked. No, if you've been bamboozled or tricked, it is because now you have strayed from the path that he has placed you on.
Right.
Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It's important we understand, because verse 9 sums it up. And if you look in verse 9, you will find that the water is represented in his life, that the blood is represented in his life. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And these are the witnesses, and they are in agreement. And the Ruach is a witness. So it is important that we understand. Have you ever noticed, once again, and I'm just really filling this in because I feel the Ruach leading me to say this. Have you ever noticed when people always want to talk about who they are, what they are, unless somebody can testify or witness to that, that's just them running their mouths. But all it takes is for 2 or 3 people to say, no, they ain't just blowing smoke, y'all. They can, if they say it, you better be rested assured they can put up. It ain't just one of them things they're just talking a great game. No, if they say it, they are going to do it. Why? Because you have what? 2 to 3 witnesses.
Right.
And these people may not even know them personally, but they can what? Testify of what the person has said concerning themselves, or what somebody else has said concerning them. So it's very important that we keep that in mind. And
Right.
it is so.
And it is so.
excuse me, verse 10, the one who believes in the Son of Yahuwah has the witness in himself. The one who does not believe Yahuwah has made him a liar, because he has not believed the witness that Yahuwah has given concerning his Son. And this is the witness that Yahuwah has given us, eternal life, and this life is in his Son. He who possesses the Son possesses life. He who does not possess the Son of Yahuwah does not possess life. I have written this to you who believe, excuse me, in the name of the Son of Yahuwah, so that you know that you possess everlasting life, and so that you believe in the name of the Son of Yahuwah. And this is the boldness that we have in him, that if we ask whatever according to his desire, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have the petitions that we have asked of him. And it is so. And it is so very important that we understand this. Why? Because this is the method by which we are Baruch through the Abba in his Son, Yahushua HaMashiach.
Right.
It is a method. It is not just a method, but these are instructions. Somebody say instructions.
Instructions.
Very important instructions for our lives. Why? Because if we're going to maintain eternal life, we have to continue to follow what? The instructions. You ever want to get lost? Get off the instructions. Lose the instructions. Stop following the instructions. It says, go straight, make a left, then turn around, the first right, make a first right. You say, oh, I can remember it. And then you go make a left, and then you go, instead of making that left, you make a right, then you make another left. You strayed from the path of the instructions that were given to you, because you were told to go straight, then make what? The first right. Then make a left, not the other way around. So it is important that we maintain this in our heart of hearts, so that we, when we are challenged to stop believing in him, because trust me, it's going to be information that will be presented to you that will seem solid, that seems legitimate, that seems like this is real. But you've got to be willing to know, I'm not following that, because just because it looks real and just because it seems real doesn't mean it's real. All mushrooms are not edible, but if you look at them, they all almost look the same. If you don't know which ones to eat, you'll find yourself pushing up daisies. So it's important that we understand not to just go by what it looks like, but dig deeper and build a relationship with the Abba through his Son, so that when these times are upon us, we will not be so quick to give in, but we will fight for what we believe in. And it is so.
And it is so.
At this time, we're going to do our affirmations, and after our affirmations, we are going to do our declaration, and then we're going to do the covering of our praise, prayer, and worship. Affirmations are what? It is what we purpose to do for us as a people. I've come to understand each tribe has their method and their means of developing their ruach, of developing their way of life. Are you following?
Yes.
And so it is important that whatever has been given to you, that you follow that method. Whatever has been given to you to build and to establish your belief in the Abba, not anything that's contrary to what we already have, but something to help us. You know how you have motivational speakers and you have coaches. What do you think they're there for? They're what? They're to remind you of what you have put out there, your goals, your aspirations. They are putting your life, or you hire them, or you connect with them because you want to be what? Reminded of what your responsibility is. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important. As a responsibility, as a Mora, and not as just a Mora, but as a prophetess, it is important for me as well as important for you to be reminded of what it is that we've been called out of darkness to walk in his marvelous light to do. It is important that we understand that it doesn't stop right here, that there are still higher heights and deeper depths in him, and we have not even began to touch or scratch the surface.
God.
But it's important that we be reminded, no matter what storms arise in our lives, no matter who comes, no matter who goes, that we always be reminded of our responsibility to the Abba and the information that he has given unto us. And it is so.
And it is so.
Repeat with me. I purpose to develop my ruach.
I purpose to develop my ruach.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I am Ibram.
I am Abram.
I am born again.
I am born again.
I am Ibram.
I am Abram.
I have the life and nature
I have the life and nature
of Yahuwah in my ruach.
of Yahuwah in my ruach.
That life is the Torah
That life is the Torah
of Yasharal.
of Yasharal.
I purpose to walk
I purpose to walk
in the Torah of life.
in the Torah of life.
Yahuwah's Torah,
Yahuwah's Torah,
Yahush,
Yahush,
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's knowledge,
Yahuwah's knowledge
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's ahab,
Yahuwah's ahab
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's power,
Yahuwah's power
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's wisdom,
Yahuwah's wisdom
is in me.
is in me.
He is teaching me.
He is teaching
He
me.
is leading me.
He is leading me.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
The Ruach,
The Ruach
HaKodesh,
HaKodesh
of Yahuwah in me,
of Yahuwah in me
is leading me.
is leading me.
I'll follow her leading.
I'll follow her leading.
I'll walk in the Torah.
I'll walk in the Torah.
Yahush,
Yahush,
our Mashiach.
our Mashiach.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Now, our declaration that we continue to proclaim and that we continue to pray that will shatter the division and the constant debating among our people and the constant wedges and gaps in our people, as we are a tribal nation, as we are a nation of 12 tribes. It's very important that we understand that we are going to be gathered together one way or the other. And I would prefer that we gather in unity and not in strife, but that we would gather together and build as the Abba has brought us forth. And so this is one of the things that he gave me to proclaim every time we have class, and not just when we have class, but to proclaim it in the atmosphere, that we can destroy the traditions that have held us bound and held us captive and kept us from being able to connect and truly build as the children of Yasharal are supposed to. So on this Sabbath, this Shabbat, let us repeat this together. Repeat with me. Abba Yahuwah.
Abba Yahuwah.
In the name of Yahush.
In the name of Yahush.
Our Mashiach.
Our Mashiach.
We subdue ignorance.
We subdue ignorance
with Torah knowledge.
with Torah knowledge.
And through this knowledge.
And through this knowledge
of Torah truth.
of Torah truth.
We claim healing.
We claim healing.
We claim shalom.
We claim shalom.
Deliverance.
Deliverance.
And salvation.
And salvation.
We decree.
We decree
Torah truth.
Torah truth
In the lives.
in the lives
of your people.
of your people.
Our people.
Our people.
Yasharal.
Yasharal.
We unite.
We unite
Not to fight.
not to fight.
Not to fight.
Not to fight
Each other.
each other.
Each other.
Each other.
But the enemy.
But the enemy
of our belief.
of our belief.
And it is so.
And it is so.
I decree a time of rest, shalom, and truth in Yahuwah through his son Yahush al-Mashiach, and it is so.
And it is so.
As we have come to this portion to where we now seal with the writings, our praise, our prayer, and our worship. Let us bow before our King. Repeat with me. May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you,
be desirable before you.
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you,
be desirable before you.
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
And it is so.
And it is so.
We have just recited Tehillim 19 and 14, and it is so.
And it is so.
Let us have one more song, please. Yahuwah, we praise you. Yahuwah, we magnify you. Yahuwah, we lift your name up high in all the earth. Yahuwah, we
all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. We magnify you and Baruch you go that name. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. We magnify you and Baruch you go that name. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. We magnify you and Baruch you go that name. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. We magnify you and Baruch you go that name. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. We magnify you and Baruch you go that name. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. We magnify you and Baruch you go that name. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. We magnify you and Baruch you go that name. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up h Yahuwah, we lift your name up high in all the earth. Yahuwah, we magnify you and Ruth Kodesh name. Yahuwah, we lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. We magnify you and Bruce Kodesh name. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth. We praise you. We magnify you. We lift your name up high in all the earth. We magnify you and Ruth Kodesh name. We lift your name up high in all the earth. High in all the earth.
High and all the earth. Come on, he's worthy of our praise, worthy of our sing, praise him, praise him. Oh, yes, we appreciate you all the time. He's worthy, he's worthy. He's worthy. Come on, brother. Come on. Hello, y'all. He's worthy of all praise, worthy of all the sing. You may be seated in his presence as we prepare to go into a time of study. We appreciate him for everything that he's doing, everything that he's done. We want to turn our attention to Shemoth chapter 13. As we do, we have a theme every Shabbat, and I am thankful for what the Abba is doing and teaching us and preparing us for everything. Most importantly, preparing us for our relationship with Him. It is a day, yamim way of life, and we're learning how to appreciate Him. We're learning how to ahab Him. You can't ahab Him like you would ahab anyone or anything else. He has given us specifically how to ahab Him. If we look into Yehukanan chapter 5, we find out that if we truly ahab Him, we do what? We guard His instructions. That is how we show that we truly ahab Him. And so it is very important that we find ourselves throughout our daily regimen, making sure that we are guarding His instructions for our lives, especially with everything that's going on. And one thing that I've learned, once again, we're turning our attention to Shemoth chapter 13. As you're turning there, I just want to say this. As we found out that the young man who really brought, from what I've heard, I don't know personally what he has done, but from what I've heard, the young man that was murdered, actually, what was his name? Nipsey Hussle. It's funny. I had seen him in a movie that I enjoyed watching. You know, our melanated movies, and he reminded me of Snoop Dogg, a lighter version, but he had that swag about him, just like Snoop Dogg. And one of the things that I've seen where people have said that he was the Messiah. Many have said that he was a truly inspiration to us as a people. And I began to think about that. And my question was, how many people did he bring into truth? With all the elaborate things that he did for the communities, my question again, how many people did he bring into truth? If he did not bring one person into truth, then all that he did, all the works that he did was null and void. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Why? Because truthfully, in order to put him in the position that many have put him in, you have to show fruit. What was his fruit that qualifies him to be put in that place of esteem, especially in our community? Not just because he helped melanated people. Now, once again, I have to give him his kudos for doing that, but then I also have to interject in there too. Why do we put him in a position? How many people did he bring in the truth? How many people did he make aware of the Abba and the instructions that he left for us to follow? How many? How many? How much did he do to bring us into truth? If you cannot find one thing, then truthfully, moms should be the word. We are so quick to label people and give them a position of esteem, but yet they show forth no fruit that merits them to carry that esteem. Then you have those that are ready to jump on you and ready to chew you up like piranhas. You know, well, he did this to the black community. Okay, well, if you are black, then maybe you can celebrate him in that. But when we understand that we are the people and the children of Yahshua, a treasured possession of him, that we do have a name and we do have a place of origin, then you realize, okay, hold up. Once again, he may have done great things, but did he bring anybody into truth? The question is, was he himself in truth? Because until we can answer those questions, then where do you or where can I truly esteem him in a position of doing great things? We have to be careful. One thing about our people, it's in our DNA. And if we don't have it, if we don't submit ourselves to the Abba, we will be just like our ancestors and forefathers. Give us a king that we can see. Make him tangible. Make him as we are. Make him to where we can touch him and we can converse with him instead of us having to converse with you through someone. Let us have somebody there. All the pictures and all the things, they have drawn him up like the Mashiach. They've had him like Jesus. They've had him in all forms. Because it's like our people just can't get away from that. You're thinking, all right, y'all still, you just keep poking away at that clip. And you up under it, and you just keep poking and poking, not believing that the Abba is going to turn loose his wrath, right? Because we continue as a people to esteem people in positions that they ought not be in, and just keep on poking and thinking, okay, well, he is the one that lighted the path. He did this and did that, and you start thinking, okay, once again, my question is, if he did he bring anybody into truth? If he didn't enlighten anybody into truth, then truthfully, why do you put your mouth on it and truly esteem him? You still have many people that are walking in a line and they're doing everything they know how to, within reason, to reach our people. And yet they do not get the kudos that this young man has gotten. Once again, it's very important that we check our motives and check why we do what we do. Because if we base everything based upon what a person has done with material things and not how they've touched or inspired somebody's life to be walking in truth, we're still missing it. We're still missing it. Because everything is going to pass away and fade away except his what? His instructions, his Torah, his word for our lives. Yeah. So it's important that we be very mindful of how we do things and how we say things so that we do not find ourselves in trouble with the Abba because we've overstepped our boundaries by speaking too much. Right. Very important. All right. Once again, we're going to Shemoth chapter 13, and we're going to begin at verse 17. Our theme this weekend is when he let go. When he let go, Beshalach. 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 When he let go. And so we're going to dive into this and we're going to see, once again, as we come through the time of Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, a time of commemoration, celebration, and a time of impartation that truly transform, I pray, our lives beyond reversing and going backwards, but provoking us to go forward. I pray truly that that time has truly revolutionized our way of thinking and our way of living. Because you have to understand, I don't know about many of you, but this time of we look for the different wheat and we look for the different bread, and it was hard to find stuff for us to make our own bread. And then the stuff we did find, and I just want to allude to this just a tiny bit because we're going to talk about this later on in the future, how we have to be careful of even the wheat products that we put in our bodies. But we check the stores because we don't buy bleached flour, and all the flour we tried to find within our areas and within our range and our grass, it was gone, it was out. And I'm like, this is not usual.
Right.
This is just not something that just happens. No, any other time you could go in there and buy that flour. But this time, no place we went had it. And I'm saying to myself, you can think that it's not a conspiracy, but I see and smell conspiracy. Because you have to understand, when you don't go and buy and support the matzah, and pay $13 for those boxes that are shipped from Israel, are you following me?
Yes.
And you don't pay that, and you start creating your own, you start doing what? Hitting them pockets.
Mm-hmm.
Then guess what? Things are going to be difficult. It's not popular, but it is the truth. It is going to be difficult. I know when we first got into this walk and we would buy the boxes of matzah, and we would end up paying $13 and $14 for 6 boxes of matzah. That money is generated and goes right back to them. But when you stop buying the matzah and you stop buying the halal and making it yourself,
Right.
then you stop, and then others that are stopping, you have to understand, you start hitting pockets. So what happens? Then people start looking at demographics. People start looking at, okay, what is being bought more in this area, and what has gone into a decline. You have to understand, people are watching that stocks. When people are watching the stocks, the stock market. So when they start seeing these things and they start seeing changes, something, and okay, wait a minute, then we got to start causing effect and change in these areas, so that will push them back into doing what they once did. Are you following me?
Yes.
Very important that we look at this. Why is it important? Because you have to understand, anything the enemy can do to discourage us from doing what we've been commissioned and commanded to do, he's going to do so at any cost. But we were able to find it, and what made it is because we got a hold of a different kind of bread, or different kind of wheat, darker wheat. We had never had darker wheat. And so it began to cause some of us to feel different. It caused us to respond to it or react to it in different ways. But we didn't stop. We kept on because we wanted to walk in complete and total obedience to what he has commanded us. So what am I saying? I am saying prepare. We have to not just prepare our minds, but we have to also prepare our bodies. But it was the time that we were able to be out away from the city, into the country, at home, off the grid, and we were able to celebrate, and we were able to eat unleavened bread. We were able to eat our lamb, which was done. It was superbly done by none other than you know him as the Sean, but Yehukanan. It was done. I mean, just expert. He just did it with just those hands, and just being able to season it. No, nothing but herbs. We used nothing but herbs. And we were able to eat and celebrate and go over the instructions that he had given unto us. And then went right into unleavened bread. That was very challenging for many of us. It was very challenging. Not because we just wanted to gobble down all kind of other foods, but because our bodies were doing something a little different this time. Eating it, and we were eating it at home. Now, the past 2 to 3 years that we had done it before, no problems. No problems. Gobble it down, no problem. And the 7th day come, and whoo, this time it was like we were catching little roadblocks in the road. We were catching little things in the road. We're like, okay, hold up, what's going on here? But we continued to do it, drink our water, and every now and then when we had after class, sip on a little bit of wine with it, but we added nothing to it. We put nothing on it. It was just straight unleavened, naked bread. And we didn't eat anything with it. We had no side meals. That's all we ate. Why? Because it was, you have to understand, it is a feast of affliction. The feast of affliction. Now, many believe, well, atonement is the only feast that we fast, but you have to understand, unleavened bread is a feast, but it's a feast also to remind us of our affliction and to remind us of the affliction of our ancestors in Yasharal. And so it's important that we hold on. As I said, Abia, who spoke to my heart and gave me some things, some new ideas, and impregnated my ruach with some ideas, and I walk now with a different perspective on many of things. And so it's important that we walk, when we walk, not so much away from it, but when we come to the conclusion of that time, that we walk away with a greater understanding and with something else that he has imparted into us.
Right.
And if he didn't impart anything, then hopefully there was something that he removed that needed to be removed. So it's important once again that we follow these things and that we pay close attention to it. And at that time we were going through the writings, and so which we continue to fall in line with this time as our ancestors and forefathers were still preparing to leave Mitzrayim, and they were getting ready to leave, and as they had head out and was getting ready to make their next major, or had already made their major move, now we are seeing the path that they're getting ready to take. And it's important that we maintain a teachable ruach,
Right.
teachable, so that we're able to understand the plight, we're able to understand their victories and even their defeats, so that we don't repeat the same defeats that they walked in, but that we repeat the victories and be able he has prescribed for us and through his son, our Mashiach, in these times. And it is so. Once again, we are in Exodus, Shemoth chapter 13, starting at verse 17, Beshalach, Beshalach. And it means when he let go, when he let go. So we're going to begin, and we're going to read, let's read 7 verses, and we're going to do as we do, and we're going to go around and read. And it is so. All right. Verse 17, chapter 13, and we're going to read 7, so you read to verse 24. Well, actually, you go into chapter 14 and start at verse 1 and just continue it there.
And it came to be, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that Yahuwah did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, though it was near, for El said, "Least the people regret when they see fighting and return to Mitzrayim." So Yahuwah led the people around by the way of the wilderness, of the sea of reeds. And the children of Yashar went up in 5s to the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe took the bones of Yosef with him, for he certainly made the children of Yashar swear, saying, "Yahuwah shall certainly visit you, and you shall bring my bones from here with you." And they departed from Succoth and camped in Etham, at the edge of the wilderness. And Yahuwah went before them by day in a column of cloud to lead the way, and by Layla in a column of fire to give them light, so as to go by Yom and Layla. The column of cloud did not cease by Yom, nor the column of fire by Layla before the people. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, "Speak to the children of Yashar, that they turn the camp before Pi Hario, between Migdol and the sea opposite of Baal to Zephon. camped before it by the sea. For Pharaoh shall say to the children of Joshua, they are entangled in the land, and the wilderness has closed them in. And I shall strengthen the heart of Pharaoh, and he shall pursue them. But I am to be esteemed through Pharaoh, and through all his army. And Mitzrayim shall know that I am Yahuwah. And they did so. Verse 5.
Mhm.
And it was reported to the sovereign of Mitzrayim that the people had fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people. And they said, why have we done this? What that we have let Yasharal go from serving us.
And all right. Chapter 13, I'm sorry, starting at verse 17. Now I'm going to read we're going to look and expound on verse 17, and I'm going to read it from two places. I'm going to first read it from the Zondervan commentary. I like looking at the different perspectives of this. Now, she finished out in chapter 14, but we're going to go back up in chapter 13 and look at verse 17. Verse 17 says, and it came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go, that power did not lead them by way of the land of Plishtim, the Philistines, although that was near. For power said, lest perhaps the people change their minds when they see war and return to Mitzrayim. Now you have to understand, Yahuwah knew that he was dealing with my term, a skittish people. You know, you see people fighting, and it's like, no, we cannot go that way. We will not go that way. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
It was the shorter way, but he understood the mindset of the people. Now, rode through Philistine country for quite some time, and this is from the Zondervan Bible commentary. Scholars have considered this road probably to refer to a road that in ancient Mitzrayim was known as the Ways of Horus, and later as the Via Maris, Way of the Sea. This road ran from the northeastern region of the delta along the Mediterranean coast in the northeasterly direction into Palestine. It is true that important Philistine settlements came to be located along this route. The reference to the Philistines of the Plishtim, though, seems anachronistic, since the Philistines settled here later. And it says, look at 15 and 14. So we're going to look at 15 and 14 real quick. Let me look at 15 and 14 real quick. Why? Because I want to show us. Okay, the reference to Philistia may be an anachronism. That is, it may come from a time later than the purported time of the Exodus. The Philistines probably did not settle in the area until the early 12th century. So it's kind of giving you a basically a sidebar saying there's a possibility that this is why it was called that, and there's a probability that it's not. Once again, reading it from the Zondervan. Now I'm going to go back to where it is in chapter 13, verse 17 here. And the war, now, that might cause the Yasharites to turn around was probably war with Mitzrayim forces stationed along this route rather than with the Philistines of the Plishtim. Now, once again, it's important that we understand why this was said. Now, you have to understand, Mitzrayim in no way was a weak and feeble people. Are you following me? They had military forces in certain places, and this is why the Abu made reference that he didn't want them to go that way, because he did not want them, after coming through and going through what they had already come through, to basically invest their energy in that. Even though they may not have ever even seen war, engaged in the war. Listen what it says. He said that power did not lead them by way of the land of Philistine, although that was near. For power said, lest perhaps the people change their mind when they see war. It didn't say when they engaged in it, when they see it. You know, you go by and you see people fighting, you be like, no, we ain't going that way. Do you see all them people down there fighting? You have nothing to do with it. You are not even there, or you're not involved in it. But for it not to discourage you, because then you start thinking, okay, what if they stop fighting each other and turn their attention where? Towards us. So we don't want to get involved in that. So it's important that we understand why and what was taking place at that time. Now, it says the ancient site known as Taru, probably, or Tel Habu, was one of the most important Mycenaean fortresses on this road, where a large New Kingdom fort has been discovered. It was from this fortress that New Kingdom kings typically began their campaigns into Palestine. In fact, a wall relief at Karnak from the time of Seti, the first, shows a series of fortresses running from Mitzrayim northeastern border to Palestine's southwestern border near Gaza. Whether or not as many fortresses actually existed as the relief depicts is unknown. But the substantial evidence for a Mitzrayim fortress at Dia El Bala is the early 1200 BC, about 1 mile from the Mediterranean coast and 8 miles southwest of modern Gaza. This site has yielded the remains of a large monumental structure, likely a Mitzrayim fortress dated to the reign of Seti I. One of the main reasons for its dating is the remarkable degree to which it resembled the typical Mitzrayim fortress represented on the Karnak wall relief. It proved to be the veritable picture image of the depictions at Karnak, and provided stark evidence for the resurgence of Mitzrayim military activity in Sinai and Canaan in the 13th century. Tajar was near the border of Mitzrayim, Deir el Bala near the border of Palestine, and there was probably smaller stations in between. Thus, the strength of the Mitzrayim military presence in this region at this time was well known. So once again, it wasn't that they would probably engage in the war. It was that he didn't want them to see them fighting. You know, it's like you're breaking free from a system, and now you see what that system doing to other people. Now you start thinking, well, what if they come after us? Okay, let's abort, turn back, go back. You know, forget this. We're not going to go forward, because what if they engage in wanting to fight us? So you have to understand, we're not serving a fickle power. We're not serving a power that does not know our ins and outs. He knows everything about us. Whether you want to believe it and accept it or not, he knows everything about us. Right. Are you following me? Yes. So if he takes us, it seems like an alternate route or a longer route, there's a possibility it is because he does not want us to be discouraged, because if we take the shorter route, now this is not always the case, but in the event it is, don't ever feel like, okay, why do I have to go the long route? Just ask Abba Yahuwah to give you the wisdom to do what you need to do, sure, and accept the decision or the choice that he's placed in your life, or the path he's placed there, and take it. That's right. Because the shorter route is not always the better route. You know, we play dominoes, all money ain't great money. Are y'all following? Yes. Very important for us to understand that. Why is it important? I always tell you that I try to bring that what is taking place in that time, in our time, in our present day and time, so that we can grow from it and pull from it. How do we live? What do we do? And how can we gain wisdom and knowledge from this that we are seeing happen to them? Well, once again, as I said before, if you know that the path you're taking, you say, hey, man, if I just go straight, that's shorter. Why do I have to go through all these twists and turns? And why do I have to seem like I'm going way out of the way? Right. Well, once again, it's a possibility that the Abba is doing it to protect you and to safeguard your belief. Mm-hmm. Very important for us to understand that. Because you have to understand, if you're trying to pull away from a thing, now understand, we can apply it to only what it applies to. We can't apply it to anything else. Are you following me? Because if you try to apply it to anything else, this is where problems come in. Somebody say, well, what do you mean by that? In other words, the reason why he didn't want to go that way, because he realized the military forces that were set up. And you know that there was always fighting going on. Right. There was never a time, because why? It was always somebody trying to take something, or somebody trying to come in and do something that was against what they were standing for. Now I want to say this once again. We were watching this movie. It didn't give us a name, but this is why it is important that we take the time and really look at the time we're living in and truly assess things that are going on and not just, brush stuff off and say, oh, that'll never happen. Now, y'all know that you have those that we look at, we call off-grid livers, we call preppers, and people making ready for when the stuff hits the fan, those type of situations. Now, this movie was, at first, you look at it and start thinking, they must be way back up in the time. No, this was something that happened, and because of everything that evolved from it, you would have believed that this was set back way back in centuries past. But because of the destruction that came about, when famine hits a place, famine ruins a place.
Right.
Because once the people are devastated and destroyed, then that what they built becomes ruins and it becomes destroyed, because who tends to it if you are not able to? And so here it is in this movie as we are watching it and just looking into everything that's going on. This man has a cabin way out in the woods. And you're looking at it, you start thinking, man, they living way back out. They ain't got no, no kind of lights and no solar panels or nothing. But he has a wood burning stove and everything. You start looking at different things, you start thinking, but it can't be that far back. What is this really saying? So come to find out, it was an apocalyptic movie. And it was just showing you what takes place, how things have been pillaged, how life had been devastated, and how things had changed so dramatically that now people were living as though they had gone back centuries into the past. And so everybody was trying to come and take what he had. You see it coming on, and he burying a person. And you start thinking, what the world? He walking around with a double-barrel shotgun, but it looked like something back in ancient times. He has a string on it. I'm not against strings, because you got to do what you got to do to keep your firearm on you. But he has a string on his double-barrel shotgun, and this is what he's doing. And you see him planting his garden, and it never dawned on me that the Coke bottle and the Sprite bottles, he had pulled the paper off, but everything looked so that it had basically reverted back. That this was an old movie, but in actuality, it was not. It was showing you the decline and the decay of what an apocalypse can do to a people and do to a nation, a country. And so here it is. You see him closing the windows to his little cabin, and you see him locking it down, and you see people coming and beating on the door, and you see all this stuff happening, and you're wondering, okay, what are they trying to get in? But these were people that had not prepared for the worst. And I know many people say, well, the Abba is going to take care of us. Yes, he is, because he's taking care of us forever. But you have to understand, too, that he gives us the ability to do things as well. And there are some things that we must prepare for. And so, as to make the movie short, and to give you the pointers that are very important for us to draw from this movie, is that number one, there was a mother and a daughter, but actually there was not a mother and a daughter. She found this young girl and raised her. And when they found him, they came in, and their whole plan was to get close enough to him and kill him and take what he had. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, wow, it makes you feel like you can't help anybody. But truth be told, if you talk to a genuine prepper and you talk to someone that is making preparations for these times, they will tell you, you cannot help anybody, because the main people you believe that you can help are the main ones coming in to take what you have. Because the worst person to try to help is a person that's desperate. And they're only thinking about themselves. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because you have to look at it from this perspective. Abba Yahuwah is giving us time to make preparations. He's giving us time to buy seed. He's giving us time to do things so that when things really start getting really, really rough, we will have something. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And then understand how you are to handle things. If you notice, the children of Yasharal moved as a hand. They moved as a unit. And there were those that followed out with them. But when it was all said and done, Yahuwah was speaking to his people and his people only. Does that mean that other people did not want to follow for the ones that really were sincere? Yes, I truly believe that Abba allowed them to experience his mercy. But for the ones that were just there to think, well, we getting out of this fix, and when we get out, we're going to do this and do that, he had another plan for them. So it's important that we understand, once again, the route and the path that Abba Yahuwah will cause us to take. He's given us the opportunity to get the things that we need, and we need to do so. We need to do so. And like I say, the movie was very interesting because it just shows you the mindset of people. I'll just come and befriend you and take what you have. And I've heard that, and you have to understand, this was not just a movie. When you hear a person comes out of their mouth and say, well, I'll take what I want, they're just saying what people have already done for generations, and people will continue to do. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And so the Abba has a way to prepare us and keep us in that place of safety if we listen. If we listen to it. And so it's important that we listen. But at the end of the movie, the man ended up losing his life. But he ended up fathering the young lady's child. And the girl ended up poisoning her, the woman that she had been with all those years. So she and the baby are the only ones that get away. And then when you see them come out of the woods and you start looking and really being able to see the reality of what was going on, you start thinking, wow, they were so far up in the woods. Who would have found them? But you have to understand one thing about when you are preparing, you have those that are preparing to take. You don't have people that are preparing to live and have their own stuff. You got people that are building a militia so they can go in and ramshack other people's stuff. And the key thing with this whole movie was that him and his brother, in the end, his brother, well, before it even came on, it showed you his brother died. And he ended up having to kill his brother so that he wouldn't be tortured. But the same thing he and his brother did was the same thing that cost him his life. You go in and you steal from somebody else because you're too lazy to prepare for yourself. You know, many say karma is a female dog. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
But you have to understand the writings put it better. Whatsoever man soweth, that shall he what? Also reap. He went and stole from other people, and then people came and stole from him. Are you following me?
Yes.
Now, once again, does that mean even if you don't steal that people won't? I look at it in this manner, and I follow what the writings tell us. That Abba Yahuwah will keep that through the mouth of Rabbi Shaul, that Abba Yahuwah is able to keep that which is committed into his care against that day. We have been committed into his hand, and he will keep what we have against that day, but we maintain our walk and maintain our integrity in this time of trying and testing. And it is so. All right, now from Torah Portions, I want to read verse 17. The rendering is because that was near. The Yashruelites men might then be tempted to return by the same route at the same encounter with difficulties. That this was a likely contingency is seen from Numbers or Bamidbar 15 and 4. The distance from Mitzrayim to Canaan by the direct route would have taken about 10 yamim. If it had been longer, Yaakov's son could not have managed to easily to make that journey many times. The Ibram syntax differs. The clause does not give the reason for Yahuwah's choice of the circuitous route, but merely states that he led Yashruel by the way of the wilderness, although the way of the land of the Plishtim was shorter. Then the next remark is, the divine intention was to lead Yashruel first to Sinai and then to the promised land. But Yahuwah changed his plan to execute judgment upon Pharaoh and his host by drowning them in the Red Sea. Now, once again, I read it from the Zondervan Bible commentary, plain, and just gives you what they believe through history. I read it from the Torah Portions. Now, one of the things that is very interesting here is that they said that Abba Yahuwah changed his mind. How do they know he changed his mind? Are y'all following me?
Yes.
The reason why I compare is because sometimes in our choice of information and literature, if we're not careful of closely examining what is being promoted, it is easy to take that mentality. Wow, people know when Yahuwah changes his mind. How do you know? Are y'all following me?
Yes.
The reason why, once again, I want to reiterate this is because when you have people basically saying, well, he changed his mind, how do you know he changed his mind? It is though many believe that they have such a monopoly on him that they know when he changes his mind, when he puts his mind into operation to do something. And that is a very dangerous place to be in. Because if the son himself says, I don't know, are you following me? But only that is in the Abba's heart and in his will to know when, are you hearing me? That Yahshua will be delivered back to, or Israel will be delivered back to its rightful owners. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So it's important that we understand that we don't start following up upon up on people that say, well, you know, he changed his mind because he was going to execute judgment. He already had planned to execute judgment on them. He just didn't come up with this. He knew. He told Pharaoh that he was going to get him, for lack of a better word. So once again, I just want to show when we're reading and when we are examining information to use as a platform, let us be very careful of those that put their opinion in and their personal belief on how this thing should turn out. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
It's important that we understand that, because if not, we'll be saying, well, you know, he changed his mind. And you know how you will sound in front of a whole lot of people. Are you silly? How do you know he changed his mind? As if you know how his mind works on a constant basis. Are y'all following?
Yes.
Very important for us to follow that. All right. Repent, change their mind, and set their heart on returning to Mitzrayim. See war. The Plishtim would certainly have attacked them had the Yasharites attempted to go by the shorter route through their land. Now, once again, I read it from both renderings so that we can understand sometimes this is where division comes in, because we can see where the Zondervan commentary puts it in a different manner, where you see the Mitzrayim in a place of battle, which I do believe. I can concur with that, because you have to understand when they said they've let them go, and he said, what did we do? You can imagine they had a scout to go out and say, stop them before they get out of here. Once they get to this place, stop them. Don't let them proceed any further. So I can concur with that, with them saying that this is one of the things. And I also concur that they were at a point to where they possibly could have been engaged in battle. Anybody ever seen Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
Now, you know, in Lord of the Rings, even though other stuff was going on in the homeland or going on there, they still had what? Battle going on where? On the front lines. Because they still had to secure the front lines in order to maintain that what they believed to be shalom back on the home front. So it's important to understand that strategy and him strategically positioning these military forces, whether small or large, in these places, was to secure them. So it's possible that they were already engaged.
Right.
And then it's possible that they would have turned and fought them. But we do know, regardless of that, we know that Abba Yahuwah said that they would lose heart. He said that he did not lead them by the way of the land of the Plishtim, although that was near. For Yahuwah said, lest perhaps the people change their minds when they see war and return to Mitzrayim. So that we do know that Abba Yahuwah knew that if they saw this, it was going to be a deterrent, and they were not going to change their mind. I mean, and that there's a possibility that they would say, hey, let's turn around and go back. We cannot proceed any further.
Right.
Are y'all following?
Yes.
Just like we do sometimes. But we can't get engaged in that. That's a little bit too, that's a little bit too heavy for it. No, we can't do that. That's too much. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be caught up in that. No, we'll just go back and stay. We'll wait till it's clear. We'll wait till it's safer. We'll wait to make sure that this is truly what we're supposed to do. Y'all know we will do it in a heartbeat. We'll turn back on certain things. So, excuse me, I wanted to point that out. Verse 18. Led the people about from the direct route by the longer and more roundabout. Yahuwah led them along an unfrequented route so that travelers should not bring the news of Pharaoh's preparation to pursue after them, which information might have been enough to induce them to go back. Once again, you have to understand everything that the Abba does, he does with purpose. He does with purpose. All right. Read C. Now let's look at verse 18. The Ibram Suf means reed. This sea received its name because reeds grew there in abundance. Suf to be the name of a place. We always said Red Sea, but it's Reed Sea. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
All right. Now I'm going to read it again from Zondervan. The Ibram phrase here is Yah Suf. It is not clear to what this phrase refers. The term soup in Ibram means reed, so we can agree that they both agree that the term means reeds. It is among the soup that Moshe's mother, or Ima, placed the waterproof basket that served as his hiding place shortly after his birth in chapter 2, verse 3. Perhaps then the Yam soup is not the Red Sea, but a body of water known as the Sea of Reeds. The Septuagint, however, translates Yam Suf with a Greek phrase that means Red Sea. So that's a Greek phrase, Red Sea, instead of Reed Sea or Sea of Reeds. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Some appreciating the translational difficulty presented by this phrase refers to it as the Reed Sea. Most scholars to Yam believe that the Ibram text intends a body of water around which reeds grew in abundance. Perhaps some of the lakes around north of the Gulf of Suez, others still opt for the Red Sea. Once again, we've already know that it's a what? Greek phrase. It's a Greek phrase that means Red Sea, but actually means Reed Sea. So once again, even with that, it helps you understand what? Geographical what? Locations. Very important to understand those things. Are y'all following?
Yes.
All right. Among those who reject the Red Sea, at least four main possibilities stand out. The first is Lake Manzella, located in the northeast corner of the Nile Delta along the Mediterranean coast. About 30 miles to the south were the Bala lakes, most of which were drained during the construction of the Suez Canal. A smaller lake south of Bala Lakes is Lake Tamsa. Finally, the Bitter Lake, where it meets the Sinai Peninsula between the Mediterranean Sea in the north and the Gulf of Suez in the south. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Now, all right. Now I'm going to read it from here, which I read it from here. That was from the Zondervan commentation, Bible commentary. I'm sorry, and also from the Torah Portions. Once again, just to get a comparison and to parallel the different aspects of it, and then those that correlate and correspond and basically connect. Now, once again, I wish I could have had this up on a screen, but it shows you the Mediterranean Sea. It shows you Lake Manzella and the Del El Bala, and it just shows you the different lakes and the where they went to Sukkah, and then the Bitter Lakes and the Gulf of Suez. It shows you the route that they took, and which shows you it was not far, but it was not a heavy traveled place. Are y'all following me? After they took that, where the Abba brought them to, which is very important. Once again, once we find out that the terms that have been used originated or they actually changed them to me to the Greek meaning, it's important to go back to the original meaning.
Right.
The original meaning, are you following me?
Yes.
Reed Sea and not Red Sea. Many times people want to fight that and argue that, which is a mute point. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Because it's important to go back to the original. And so this is important that we follow that. Now, when we look at verse armed, let's look at the armed when he says armed. Well provided with weapons. This explains how the Yashroelites found the necessary equipment later on to engage in battle with Amalek, Midian, etc. Another explanation of Kamusham connects with it with Kamesh 5. Only 1 in 5 of the Yashroelites came out of Mitzrayim. The remainder were not deemed worthy to be delivered and perished during the plague of darkness. And it says, see the scripture 10 and 22. Scripture mentions that the Yashroelites came out armed to make sure that they left Mitzrayim triumphantly and not stealthily like slaves escaping from their master. That's a good point. That's a great point to look at. Very great point. Because remember, they left that morning.
Right.
Because that's how they were able to get everything that they were supposed to get. And I truly believe this. Why? Because once again, they were not escaping. They were leaving because the door had been opened by the Abba.
Right.
So they were not sneaking out from anywhere. Very great point. Once again, and armed. Now, verse 19, Moshe took, as leader of the people, he realized his responsibility to esteem the promise made to Joseph, which was very important, not to leave any of his body, leave his bones there, because he did not want to be attributed as being Mitzrayim.
Right.
He wanted to leave, like, no, don't leave any of my, don't leave nothing there. Now, mind you, he knew that the Abba was going to visit them and bring them out. How could he have known that? Because he followed and he had a relationship with the Abba, and he followed what? The Torah, his instructions. Many people say, well, the Torah wasn't constructed, it wasn't created, all of it. You have to understand what Torah means. It means his instructions.
That's right.
That's right.
Instructions. So that's important. From the time he began to deal with Abraham on forward, even when he dealt with Adam and Hawa in the garden, that was his Torah. Why? Because he gave them instructions to follow.
That's right.
They are the first Torahless folk because they broke the Torah. His instructions. Are you following me?
Yes.
Very important to understand. All right. Had straightly sworn. Literally making swear, he made swear. That is, he made his brother swear that he would impose an oath on their children. Unlike his Abba, he could not request that his body be conveyed to Canaan immediately after his death. He had the authority to arrange for the conveyance of Yaakov's body, but they did not possess the authority to do the same with him. So this is why he's now, excuse me, when I cross over or I die, promise me that you will tell your children to bring me out. Don't let my bones stay there. Don't let the essence of who I am or who I was remain in that place. Are you following me?
Yes.
Bring me out of there. And they did. With you, since Joseph's brothers would be dead by the time of the Exodus, with you must be understood as with your bones. Together with Joseph's bones, the Yashroelites also brought out the bones of his brothers, which would make absolutely, which would make sense, because nobody was able to be buried outside of that. The only one that was able to do that, remember, because Joseph was in power, so the only one that was able and had the authority to do so would have been Joseph when he was alive.
Right.
But he had to give instructions so that everybody would know, don't leave any of our people here. Take us all out. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now that's one thing they did without folk. Get them bones out of there. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
All right. Very important to understand. All right. Yeah. All right. Now, as we look, took their journey. This was on the second yom of their departure, as on the first yom they reached Succoth, which we see in 12 and 37. And like I said, I wish I had where I could show you. I need to get my make sure I have a projector when we're going over the maps where I can show you. We can see there travels, because this is important for us to understand how they traveled. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
All right. Now, reach there. Etham, identical with the wilderness of Shur. We see that in 15:22. Yahuwah went. Yahuwah judged or guided, Yashral by the agency of the pillar of cloud. An angel or Malak led a pillar of cloud before them by Yom and of fire by Layla. It is an anthropomorphism expressing the idea that the might of Yahuwah accompanied them. Pillar of cloud, so termed because unlike the ordinary cloud, it extended from Shemayim to earth like a column. So you can see it almost like if you would see a tornado. It covered them. Now you have to understand, anybody that will follow up behind somebody with that behind them is crazy. It's really crazy. You're going to tell me that you would follow somebody with a pillar like that, protecting their rear, and you believe that you're going to be able to break that force and get to them. Now, mind you, it ain't blowing nobody away. It ain't getting nobody caught up in it. You hear me?
Yeah.
Nobody's getting sucked into it. Nothing is happening, and everybody's able to do what needs to be done. And you're going to still follow behind that? That person is crazy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That person is crazy. Excuse me. By Yam and by Layla. Because the Yashraelites were so numerous, they could not continue journeying for a long time. They were compelled to journey a little by Yom and a little by night. Because you have to understand, that's a lot of people that had come out of there. A lot of people had come, and not to mention they had children, they had the elderly, they had people coming out. So, and he wasn't going to push them like a hard taskmaster, just push them until their tongues fall out. Mm-mm. Verse 22 departed not the Ibram Yamish as the Hiphil of Mush to depart and renders. Yahuwah did not cause to depart. The Yashraelites were not left for a moment unprotected. Before one pillar was removed from them, the other replaced it. So you have to understand, a cloud of smoke by Yam and a pillar of fire by Layla. Can you imagine the switching or the changing of how phenomenal that was? The changing of those pillars. Mm-hmm. Many have tried to say that that one pillar would change into the other, but it said a pillar of fire by Layla and a pillar of smoke by Yam. He could have changed it, and he could have had two. But the bottom line is, this is how he protected and safeguarded them.
Right.
And anybody crazy enough to continue to pursue a people with that type of protection tells you that they have been turned over and they are what? Reprobated. Because you're thinking you about to fight a people. How you going to get past that? You can't. Mentality. It just shows you how messed up. All right. Turn back. Chapter 14. Turn back. The Yashraelites turned back and moved towards Mitzrayim to mislead the Mitzrayim into believing that they had lost their way. Piharatha, to be identified with Pithom. The word is connected with Chura, freedom, and the place received its new name because the Yashraelites there became free men. Now, once again, you also have to understand how this also plays an important part in the in that last plague, when the darkness came about. And I want to read this to you again. Very important. After the firstborn was killed. Now we know the death of the firstborn, which was the 10th plague. The firstborn was dedicated to their power or to their idol. It was considered the esteem of the power or to the Mitzrayim, their powers. We know the firstborn is always committed and given to the other. Now, the firstborn was considered the excellence of man. Yahuwah also considered the firstborn designated to him. In the death of the firstborn, Yahuwah took away Mitzrayim's excellence and demonstrated the Hebrew or the Ibram favored position in his eyes. Now you have to understand that is what happened that he was showing in his eyes. But let's go back to the ninth plague, which talks about the eye. Okay.
Yes.
Now let's look at the eye. Amen Ra, most esteemed power and considered the most powerful. And I don't understand how people continue to esteem these things and not read to understand that if it was all that, then how come Mitzrayim is still messed up? How come it's desolate and really all that which was spoken about is really not in place like it once was? Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now, uh, the sun power or sun god Ra was considered the father of the Pharaoh and the most powerful of gods in defeating the sun. Yahuwah defeated the idea of such a god's existence. Now you have to understand what is important with that one, and also with the locusts, each one of them. I'm trying to find the one. Yes, the locust when it covered the whole earth. Also the locust, how it covered the whole face. Two uh, um, of the plagues, the locust and the darkness and the death of the sun. All of them have great significance, but the locust and the darkness have a significance that work together. All of them work together to bring about the purpose and the power of the Abba, to show that he was the only power that was able to defeat all of them. Now, one thing I want to show is that you have to understand when they came back around, there was also when because Pharaoh thought that they was all confused and mixed up. He said they confused, they done got lost in there. At the last, there was one last deity that the Abba was getting ready to destroy. And that was to prove to them that he was the Abba. Now you have to understand when the locust set on all of the face of the earth, it is to show that when Pharaoh was threatening them. I think it is in chapter 10, 10 or 11, where Pharaoh was threatening them, telling them, if you leave, then danger awaits you in the wilderness. Basically, because he was saying that that power that was out there would devastate them, and that there was an evil out there that would be able to destroy them. And so it is with this that the Abba said, okay, he can't, if he can't see them, he can't destroy them. So he covers the eye with the locust. Not only does he cover the eye with the locust, but he also comes back around and he brings about darkness to shut them down completely. Then with the death of with the firstborn son is to show that that what you held in regard has no power and has no relevance. Now it's like, Pharaoh is at a point where he can say, now if you were such an abba to the children of Yahshua, why do you have them going in circles? Right. But he's about to show them that he's about to end this final plague. Are y'all following?
Yes.
Anybody ever saw Fifth Wave?
Yes.
Now you know at the latter part where it says when the children got an understanding and was able to realize what was taking place, and like we always say, we ain't never none of the pictures. We always somewhere out of the place. So we 9 times out of 10 at home, maxing and relaxing while everything else is in chaos and so forth. But the latter part where he said the fifth wave, we are the fifth wave. And he said, what is it about us? He said, we are to basically wipe out humanity. It is us as the children. Y'all have to understand that movie has so much significance in it. And if you watch it, you will really begin to see how mentally disturbed a lot of people are and all of the stuff, the aspects and the mindset that people have concerning the end of the world. Are y'all following me? Who's going to be left and who's going to maintain the earth and who's going to repopulate it? You never see us. And we're the ones that basically Yahuwah has given this to. But anywho, it's important to understand the fifth wave was about them because they were the fifth wave. Are you understanding me?
Yes.
It's important that we see what the Abba is getting ready to do with Pharaoh and his army, because he's about to deal with them like he dealt with what? The plagues. And it is so.
Yes.
All right. Now, excuse me. Now we look at Baal Zephon. Baal denotes an idol, and it was the only Mitzrayim deity that escaped destruction at the hands of Yahuwah. This too was designed to mislead its worshippers to think that this power was too mighty to be overcome. Baal Zephon. Are you hearing me? This is where the Yahweh is going to show them. I just left this one for the last to show you. Pharaoh will say, when he hears that the Yasharites had turned back, entangled, they are hemmed in and sunk deep, and they do not know whither to turn. Shut them in. The roads of the wilderness are barred against them, and like fugitives, they do not know where to go in and where to go out. The Mitzrayim idol Baal Zephon closed the wilderness on them because it was a brazen image set up to bar the escape of slaves from Mitzrayim. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
All right, verse 4. Now, it's important that we understand that the Yahweh sets this thing up because, once again, he's about to destroy the last plague. He's about to bring this thing to a complete end. Verse 4, I will harden. After his sufferings as a result of the plagues, Pharaoh would not feel disposed to pursue after the Yashraelites. Therefore, Yahuwah hardened his heart to move him to undertake the pursuit and so meet with his deserved fate. This happened again. We can see that in verse 17 to induce the Mitzrayim to follow the Yashraelites into the dry path between the divided waters. Get me esteem upon. When Yahuwah punished the wicked, his name is thereby magnified and esteemed in the world. Now, this is important too to understand. Stop calling people esteemed when they are wicked in the eyes of the Abba.
Right.
We always want to call everybody, esteemed, and they are wicked in the eyes of the Abba.
Right.
Let me ask this question. What is wickedness in the eyes of the Abba?
Disobedience.
Very great. Absolutely. That's wickedness. To teach against Torah, to push people out of his instructions is wickedness. And to keep people, to hinder people, and to cause people to refrain from serving and esteeming the Abba is wickedness in the eyes of the Abba. And this is how he gets his esteem when one dies. That is wicked. We've got to stop as a people saying that people who are wicked in the eyes of the Abba are esteemed. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Because we're going to put esteem. Oh, that person did so many great things. The greatest thing a person can ever do is free a person's mind from living in bondage and living in estranged from the instructions that the Abba has given unto us as a people. You can give a person $1 million if they are still walking contrary to the instructions of the Abba. You've not done anything. We've not done anything. Are you following me?
Yes.
We've not done anything. But you can feed a person and give them truth, and you've given them the world. You've given them the greatest wealth they could ever have. Why? Because you've unlocked that way of life for them, that no longer are they living contrary to him. No longer are they an enemy unto him. But now they come to understand this. When you do that, you have just made them wealthy and you have just esteemed the Abba. But to give a person money and to give them fame, fortune, and houses and bring them out of poverty, they're still in poverty as long as they are, and I'm talking specifically about our people, and they are walking contrary to truth, they are still in poverty.
Right.
And they are an enemy to the Abba. It's important that we understand. He said, no, this is how I get my esteem when I lay them to rest, which they're not laid to rest. The Mitzrayim shall know, the remnant of the nation, as well as those who saw death coming to them in the reed sea, or the sea of reeds. And this is why when I see our people, many of our people that worship, those that are in Kemet, those that walk in that, you can't make me believe that they are not the children of Yahshua. Because why are you going to go back into a system that enslaved you and can't bring you freedom? But they esteem it with everything within them. They are truly, in my opinion, the children of Yahshua. Because they went backwards. And they're worshiping all these things, and still, they still fickle and all messed up. Are y'all following?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand. They did so. That is the children of Yasharal turned back. Scripture records this in praise of the Yasharalites to make it clear that they did not flee from the enemy, but on Moshe's instruction turned back towards them. Let's pick it up in verse 5. So they were instructed to turn around and go back that way. Why? Because Abba Yahuwah was about to put the nail in the coffin, and he was about to finalize this very thing. And it is so. All right, verse 5. And let's read 7 verses. Mhm.
Verse 5, you said 7 verses.
Mhm.
And it was told the king of Mizraim that the people had fled. And the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people, and they said, Why have we done this, that we have let Yasharal go from serving us? And he made ready his chariot and took his people with him. And he took 600 choice chariots, and all the chariots of Mizraim, with captains over every one of them. And Yahuwah hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Mizraim, and he pursued the children of Yasharal. And the children of Yasharal went out with boldness. But the Mizraim pursued them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, his horsemen and his army, and overtook them camping by the sea beside Pi Hahiroth, before Baal Zephon. And when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Yasharal lifted their eyes, and behold, the Mizraim marched after them, and they were extremely afraid. And the children of Yasharal cried out to Yahuwah, and they said to Moshe, Because there were no graves in Mizraim, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you so dealt with us to bring us out of Mizraim? Is this not the word that we told you in Mizraim, saying, Let us alone that we may serve the Mizraim? For it would have been better for us to serve the Mizraim than that we should die in the wilderness.
And it is so. See, them the kind of people who make you jump in the flesh real quick and pop them in the nose. You start thinking, did you not see what we just come out of? Did you not just see what we come out of? It is important that we understand that you will have people, and we still have people with that mentality. You trying to take us a whole nother way, and we can't do that, and it's best we just go back into the world. And many just don't go back into the world. They go back into religions. They go back into Christianity, Buddhism. They go back into all that kind of stuff. Why? Because they feel like this is, it was better if I just stayed in that. And you start thinking, don't go back into that. Don't go back into that. You come out of that and you know this is not real. But just because your mentality has beguiled you to believe that I got to go backwards. I can't go forward. This is just, no, this is too much. And you start thinking, after all you've seen, after all you've beheld, you still want to go back into that? Then the question is, where are you going back to? Did you not see he devastated the place? And then you have that question. Do you think they're going to receive you after you've left? You going back, they're going to look at you real stupid. And then the first thing they tell you, I told you so. She's wishy-washy. And then you're going to have messages preached all around your head. Well, see, they were so fickle. And if they would have had belief, or they'd have had faith and God, and they would have stood on the principles of Jesus, they would have never gone out there. And you start thinking, you want to really go back into that? That's foolishness. That's foolishness. Now listen what takes place. It was told by the officers detailed by Pharaoh to accompany them on their 3 Yamim journey to sacrifice to Yahuwah. When the Yashalites were encamped at Pi Hahiroth, it was evident from their demeanor that they regarded themselves as free men without the intention of returning to Mitzrayim. And this was reported to Pharaoh. Because remember, you had people watching them. They ain't coming back. They didn't got settled in. They didn't set up camp. They are not returning. Are you hearing me? Yes. But then you had those, well, we need to go back. Skittish, scary. But we was only supposed to be out here 3 Yamim. We need to go back. And people looking like, wait, this is what freedom smells like? This is what it feels like? And you want to go back? I'm sorry, I'm not going back into that. Are you hearing me? The people were fled. This was clear from the fact that the Yasharites did not proceed in a direct route into the wilderness, but turned back, which created the impression that they were attempting to flee and did not know in which direction to go. So now you got all this going on, and and everybody got their was really got their input to put in. You got people where they don't know what they're doing. They just going in circles. They just hold things. Somebody need to help them because they just vacillating, and then they fumbling and bumbling around. There's just a bunch of bumbles all over the place and don't know where they're going. Do you not know that's what they are saying about us as a people now?
Yeah.
All you have to do is look at they make jokes about us. They try to cut funnies about us. They try to say that we can never come together, that everything we do, we don't never get together. They just going in circles, and they say they're truly coming out being this people, and they're really not. And y'all, it's gotten to the point now, y'all have to understand, and I don't say this to make it, which we can never be racist, but to make it a negative um, uh, uh, um, 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 statement. But you have to understand what bothers me is when I go into these communities that are set up for the children of Yasharal, and you have other people from other nations that come in there, and they start posting up posts directed towards them. Rise up, we are the people. Now you have to understand, I have a problem with that because I'm not you. You're not me, so who are you directing that to? Are y'all following me?
Yeah.
We are a people. We must rise up and remember that you are the chosen of Abba Yahuwah. And I'm looking and I'm saying, y'all don't have an issue with this right here? Because they just back pocketed you just that quick. Just that quick. And I'm saying to myself, and then when you go and look in the pictures, they have no pictures of themselves. Why? Because they don't want to come under scrutiny. But then you post up something with some chocolate, heavy melanated folk in it. Well, he had, Abraham had many sons. Well, Abba Yahuwah. Well, you start thinking, why is it that it's always an issue when we put it up, and it is to encourage our people to maintain and to move forward, but then they put it up and mum's the words. Come on, because we are a people. You know who we are. We are the chosen. And I'm saying to myself, I'm not an administrator in this community. I don't even know why I'm in this community, truthfully. You people just throw me in communities. I'm like, stop putting me in communities. But this person said this, and I looked at it and I'm like, and nobody has addressed it at all. Why? Because people want us to coexist. We're going to live together as one big mishpachah. Because we can all just get along? Yes, we can, as long as people stay in their place. Stay in your lane. Somebody said, well, they're not supposed to encourage themselves. Understand, you're supposed to be encouraging us. When you start segregating yourself, once again, you put yourself in a position to say, we as this people are the chosen. Then where does that put us? Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to think about and listen to. Because we'd be all on the bandwagon, but let you put a bandwagon up there with something that's contrary to their belief. Everybody and they granny gonna come out with something. Well, that's a negative statement, and you can't put it out there like that. You start thinking, wow, really? But it's important that we understand and we be careful with these things. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important that we be careful with these things. Now, once again, excuse me. The people were fled. This was clear from the fact that the Yasharites did not proceed in a direct route into the wilderness, but turned back, which created the impression that they were attempting to flee and did not know which direction to go. Was turned, that is changed. Pharaoh regretted that he had let Yasharal go, and his servants that they had provided them with gold and silver. He thought that his deity Baal Zephon would be able to withstand the power of Yasharal. He just knew they were going to get out there and get stuck and have to turn back. But then when message got back, they partying. They ready to leave. They not coming back. You think they gonna come back to that? They ain't going back into that. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
He made ready. Pharaoh personally made his chariot ready to encourage the people to take up the pursuit. Took his people, he spoke to them persuasively, pleading with them to pursue the Israelites and promising them that though he was the king, they would find him at the head of the pursuers and he would share the spoils with them. They were ready to go and grab them. Verse 7, all the chariots, that is, all the other chariots in addition to the chosen chariots, captains, literally third men, that is, officers who rank third after the king, the second being the viceroy. And so everybody that he could get in there, because remember now, there was a civil war that took place too. And so during this civil war, many people died. So he basically dealing with that which was left over. Because you got people that you got this going on and all the rest of this stuff. Harden the heart, verse 8. Pharaoh was undecided whether to pursue the Israelites or not. So Yahuwah hardened his heart, high hand, openly and with daring, not stealthily, as fugitives, and also in possession of arms. So they left knowing we're not going back. And if we have to fight, that's what we will do. Are you understanding me?
Yes.
Now, I want to say this. Even as we as a people have watched our ancestors and we have seen so many slave movies, we have seen so many movies that depicted our people as being weak, timid, and not willing to fight. But you have to understand, there were those that were, I won't say skittish, but were fearful of their lives because they saw things that happened. But you have a generation that's not just saying we're going to fight physically, but we're going to fight intelligently. We're going to arm ourselves intelligently, and we're going to arm ourselves first and foremost spiritually. We're going to arm ourselves in the truth, and then if it resorts to us having to fight, we will fight. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
We will not take down because we will not be bullied into believing that we are not supposed to fight back. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
You break a people and you break their desire to live and do better, you have them. I saw a video in the music that was sent to me. I can't remember who sent it to me, but I watched it and you know, it was decent. I mean, I could relate to what it was saying, and it wasn't worship music, but it was just depicting slaves on a plantation. Oh, it's called "We Built This Stuff," but it ain't stuff. You know, we built this poop. And so, but the basis of the song, I enjoyed it. I mean, it has a nice rhythm and the message is very important. And he was talking to some of the brothers and they were slaves, and you have these two European men, and I don't know if it was from a movie or what, and they're forcing them to go and to dig trenches and to do this and do that. And he's telling the other two melanated brothers, he said, we built this. He said, we are better than this. We could do better. We do not have to succumb to the ways of these people. And they were like, no, what we're going to do? How are we going to do it? We just don't. This, he said, you just got to rise up and do it. And so one of the men had passed out because they had worked him so hard. You know, he just passed out. And they were making fun of him, poking him in the head and holding him up like a puppet. And, you know, come on, get to work. And the other one, he said, stop it. And the old fat European man, belly hanging out and old nasty self, walked over to him and he said, what did you say to me? And he kind of looked and he, at first, then he came out of his mouth. He said, I said, stop it. And he got the whip and he started whipping him and he was, you know, crying and he was hollering. And he was, you know, crying out to the other one saying, you know, help me. And so they were sitting there. So, you know, you always got to have a little one and a big one. So the big one that was up there had the shovel and he kept trying to, you know, saying, I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to get involved because you can see it. But he kept thinking about what he had said. And he was saying, you know, it's two of them. It's three of us. And so big man grabbed that shovel and went to town on him. Then they beat up the other one. And they basically, in the end, he ends up killing the master. Now, understand what I am saying, because I don't want people saying that Mora Aliyah is telling people to go and kill people. That is not what I am telling you to do. But I will never say not to defend yourself.
That's right.
I will never say that. But they had to rise up and to defend themselves because they were going to kill them. Now, in the end, they ended up walking away because they made a choice to what? Fight back. Fighting back doesn't always mean picking up a gun. Fighting back means that we are determined to come together and be a nation of people that the Abba has called us to be. Fighting back means that we've said that we're going to be autonomous. We're going to be a nation of people that will not depend on any other nation, any other culture, but our own. Fighting back means that we will educate ourselves beyond that which we were educated, because we were miseducated. And if truth be told, some of us are still being miseducated. But to educate ourselves according to the way that the Abba would have had us educated. That's how we fight back. And then if it means taking up arms, then we take up arms. Yeah. Because what group of people or nation show me that when it comes down to it is not willing to fight, even if they have to pick up sticks and rocks?
That's right.
They're going to defend what is theirs.
That's right.
And that is not against the Constitution. I can defend myself. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand. I can defend myself. You could defend yourself. But the way we fight back is that we show them we are not a crazy, delusional people.
That's right.
But we are a people that we know and that we can truly be a God. And that we can be that people that can build. We can build from the ground up. We can build. Are y'all following me? Yes. Together. A God. And not be divisive and not be treacherous and not be backbiters and slanderers, but truly be able to build. We're able to do so. And we have to prove to the other nations we can. We don't need your stuff. We got more women going natural than the law allows. I am so thankful to the Abba that I allowed my young daughters to talk me into going natural. You know how much money I save? And how to change my health and how I enjoy my natural hair. Kinky, thick, curly. Are you hearing me? Me in my original state. The hair I was born with. Are you following me? Natural. Learning how to do and deal with us as a people. Give them back their way. Give them back their stuff. And we have our own stuff. Are you following me? Very important for us to understand. We have enough of stuff out here that we can create our own cities.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. We can buy our own land, buy our own country, our own towns, until we go back home. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It can be done. But we have to come together. No little U's and no big I's. It's us. It's we. Are you hearing me? It's us as a God. And it can happen. Even wolves know how to do what they got to do.
That's right.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
They know how to do what they have to do. And so can we, even lions, regardless. Y'all, everything in creation can come together regardless of how people try to say, well, they don't, they don't run in packs. They don't run in, swarms. They don't do that. Trust me, when it comes time for it, they can walk together.
That's right.
It was an amazing picture, video in Africa where there were 5 lions. You saw it, where they were walking in the street together. They were walking together, not brawling, not fighting. They were walking. And I want to say this, and y'all know I habas, but most of the time when men get into it, it's overwhelmed. Female. It's true. Not all the time now. I'm not saying all the time, so don't try to quote me on saying that. But most of the time when you see lions, it's either for food or lions. It is. So it's important that we understand that we can walk together. Anytime you see the animals can do this. You see birds can flock together. You can see everything, fish. You can see sharks, and you know sharks are some of the most horrible things out there. Killer whales. Let it not be said that we can't come together and do what we're supposed to do. And we are his set apart people. We are his anointed. Are you home?
Yes.
And it is so.
Yes.
And it is so. All right. Excuse me. Now, Yahuwah hardened his heart. All the horses, literally verse 9, every horse. This suggests that the horsemen did not approach the Yasharites in scattered groups, but as a united force. His army is infantry. They were going back because watch this, their mentality was either you're going to come or you're going to die where you are. Something that we really didn't have. What was it, a militia?
Right.
But you always hear them like Malcolm X speak about it. And one thing, if you listen at Malcolm X, and I have come in my more mature age to appreciate Malcolm X. We were always taught, he's a Muslim. Don't listen to what that man said, because that was coming out of his mouth is of the devil. But I've come to appreciate the wisdom of Malcolm X the more that I listen to him. He never ever told them to attack anybody. He said, always be prepared to defend yourself.
That's right.
But Christianity has blocked that and made us believe that anything you talk about defending yourself or even acknowledging your culture and your nationality, then you are not a true Christian. And no matter how many times you see this and you have these folks out here, I'm going to be very careful and respectful with my words. But when you have people out here defending Christianity, I have to ask, where do you stand? You cannot. That's like trying to take stink out of boo-boo. It's the truth. It stinks. It is from your body because it's what? Waste.
Yeah.
It is. You can do nothing with it but bury it. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
But when you have people that continually defend it, I don't care how many thousands of extensions and definitions of it, it is still wrong. And when you have people, when we were in Christianity, oh, we're not black, we're Christians. But they could get up, smile and sing their songs and non-rhythm having selves. And they could get up there and enjoy and relish in who they are. But we always had to play the dummy. I said it, the dummy. No, don't say you black. No, you can't. When you go somewhere, you can't have the rhythm that was put in you. No, you can't be that. You have to come and succumb to their way. If they sing flat and without tone, you sing the same way. Don't you jazz it up and put no rolls in there. Rolling like Yasmin and Amuna and rapping like Sean. Are y'all following me? You can't get up there and sing like that because now you're doing what? Being too black. No, that's about having soul, making you feel something. You know that song, I'll Make You Feel Something, it's called Jump, Jump. What was it, them two brothers that made it? It's an old song. Crisscross. Yeah, that's old. Even Salt and Pepper said, make you feel something. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
You don't want something, you go in there, you be like, really? Where's the flavor to this? No flavor, just flat, tone deaf. Now watch this. You have more of them singing or trying to sing like us than the law allows.
That's right.
And now we trying to sing like them, all flat and all opera and sound like something in a spooky horror movie. Oh, no. Well, we lost our identity and we were made to fear, to listen to anybody that would be willing to say, fight for the cause, fight for who you are.
Right.
Fight to hold on to your identity. He never told anybody to attack anybody. He always said, I am a firm believer. You need to defend yourself. He said, because if you can't have anybody to protect what belongs to you, you better protect it. Why do you think so many of our people lost so much land and so many lives were lost? Because they were afraid to fight back.
Right. Right.
We can't be that way. Are y'all following me?
Yes. Yes.
They left out ready. We ain't going back. We gonna fight. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Ain't no crime in fighting back.
That's right.
No crime. Now, you got a problem with that, that's on you. You let them beat you up and ragdoll you all over the place. You do that. You get joy out of it. I stand on the sideline and help, applaud you, get skull drilled. No, that's not the way the Diablo wants us. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And it is so.
And it is.
All right. Pharaoh drew nigh, verse 10. The Ibram has the Hilpha form he brought near, which requires an object. And Pharaoh made himself near. That is, he forced himself to go in front of the Mitzrayim as he had promised. The implied object is his army. Marching, the singular form of the verb is used with the plural subject, Mitzrayim. It implies that they marched against the Yasharites with one mind as one man. He had to get them to a point to convince them, because remember, they were done with him. After their children had died, the firstborn, you have to remember, many people lost not only their children, but they lost their spouses. So you had all of this that had come about. Now he's got to take the reins and he's got to convince them, let's go get our spoil back. Let's go get these people back, because they're gonna help us build what their power destroyed. He was determined, and he was able, after all that, still corral them into believing to trust him and follow him. After all that they experienced at his hands of pride and disobedience and stubbornness. And we, at times, won't follow people that's doing their best to try to give you truth. Y'all know it's the truth. We'll rise up and fight people. Well, I don't like the way they did this. Well, I don't like the way they said that. What have you lost since you've been with them? What have you gained since you've connected with them? That's the question. What have you gained?
Right.
Well, I gained a little more knowledge, but I just can't. Need to get out of that stinking thinking.
Right.
Gain is gain, absolutely. And loss is loss.
God.
It's important that we understand this. Are y'all following?
Yes.
Understand it and hold on to it. All right, let's read. We read to what? Verse 14. Cried out in their distress, the Yasharites resorted to prayer, as did the patriarchs in their troubles. As the Yasharites cries out, they were divided among themselves. Some prayed to Yahuwah, while others murmured against Moshe. Now you can imagine those that were mumbling, just like today when you say, or to young, you say, we need to pray. Well, the problem comes in about, nobody asked you to give us no problems. We said, let's fast and pray.
God.
Let's take a moment of silence, and people still want to take it. Let's take a Selah moment, and people still want to continue to do what they do. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It's important that we see everything that's going on. No graves. Was it for want of graves in the wilderness, where there is no bread or water? And even if we were not pursued, we would die of want. Once again, look at how people are looking towards the future instead of examining the present. One of the things that I am learning to do is rewire my mind and look at things from a different perspective. We sometimes try to live in 2020 and 2025, and we still in 2019. We still haven't dealt with the obstacles and the pressures of the present time. Why add to it? I understand when Yahushua told him, he said, give no regard for tomorrow has its own problems. He said, but take care of too young. Are you following me?
Yes.
And he will take care of us. He said, why? He said, because the Gentiles worry about these things. Think about it. We get into future planning, and understand, I'm not against planning, but I am against when you take more time planning for the future than you do for the present. Because 5 years from now, hell, we don't even know if we're going to be here 5 years from now. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It's important that we deal in the present, because you'll get rid of a whole lot of headaches and worries if you deal in the present and stop trying to deal in the future and in the past. You'll feel a whole lot of weight drop off you. You start thinking, I don't know what that is up there, but I do know what's before me right now. And I got to deal with this and do that. And when the next day come, I will deal with that day. And the next day, I will deal with that day. Are you following me? That y'all? Why? Because when we don't, we add more. Are you following me?
Yes.
Because that time and energy taken up for that could be invested in worshiping and studying right then and there. Because you get tied up in, man, what am I going to do? What if this failed? What? You still in the present. I might run out of gas next week. You are in hype. You let next week come. Are you following me?
Yes.
We do these things. It's about renewing our mind. Somebody say renew my mind.
Renew my mind.
Say it again like you mean it.
Renew my mind.
Renew my mind. According to Romania 12, 1 and 2. Primary verse 2. Verse 12, we spoke. Although it is not recorded that they had said this, it may be taken as implied in their words. Yahuwah look upon you and judge. They hearkened not unto Moshe. Verse 13, fear ye not. So accustomed had the Yasharites become to look upon the Mitzrayim as their masters. Listen at this. That even now when they numbered more than 600,000 men, they were still afraid of them. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
You know, we have a saying, we don't count numbers, we make numbers count. But when you have 600,000 men versus that, you can put 100 men or 1,000 men on a group and you can take care of them. But watch this. Just because you have a number doesn't mean that everybody's of one accord. That's one thing I've learned. You can't look, well, boy, they got a big old move or they got a big old following. Yeah, they got a big following, but only 2 people that's willing to do because everybody else scared.
Right.
You know, so you can't count number, but they had that many people, they were still afraid. Mindset. You cripple a person here first, then you don't have to worry about the movements because that's going to follow.
Right.
Because you control them through their thoughts. And when you fear in a person, you can control them. And it is so.
So,
Moreover, they were untrained and lacked the courage to fight against the disciplined horses with a rock. Okay, how disciplined they are. Fighting is fighting. Are you hearing me? The Mitzrayim to Yom. The implication of to Yom is that was the last Yom on which they would see them. For you, on your behalf, hold your own in contrast to their former cries. They said, no, this time, because now y'all are not of one accord. Some of you complaining, some of y'all crying, you know how that sounds. You know, hey, if you ever been in a crowd with hungry folk, we're hungry. Well, just hold on. Some saying, hold on. And then others, please, 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 come and get this. And others, hold on. You just got a whole lot of stuff going on. So you can kind of understand, this is what's taking place. Are y'all following me?
yes.
All right. Let's start at verse 15, please.
Verse 15. Yahuwah said to Moshe, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Yasharites to break camp. As for you, lift up your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea, and divide it so that the Yasharites can go through the sea on dry ground. I'm going to harden the hearts of the Mitzri so that they will go in after them, and I will receive esteem by means of Pharaoh, all his army, and his chariots and horsemen. The Mitzrayim will know that I am Yahuwah when I receive esteem through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. Then the Malach of Yahuwah, who was going in front of the Yashurite forces, moved and went behind them. The pillar of cloud moved from in front of them and stood behind them. It came from between Mitzrayim and Yashurite forces. The cloud was there in the darkness, yet it lit up the night. So neither group came near all the other all night long. Then Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea. Yahuwah drove the sea back with a powerful east wind, and all that night, and turned the sea into dry land. So the waters were divided, and the Yashurite went through the sea on dry ground, with the waters like a wall to them on their right and their left. And it is so.
And it is so. You read to 21? Okay, great. All right. I always enjoy looking at the footnotes to give us a fleshed out, broader spectrum or scope on what's taking place. Why? Because it helps us to appreciate everything that took place. Are you following me?
Yes.
Very important that we look at that. Wherefore crieth thou unto me? Although there is no mention of it, Moshe must have prayed to Yahuwah, who reminded him that when his people are in trouble, it was no time to pray at length. An alternative rendering is, wherefore criest thou? it is unto me. It is for me to decide this issue. Yahuwah did not speak these words to Moshe as an individual, but as the leader of the people. As the rabbis explained, once again, listen who's giving this interpretation. It was Moshe who cried since he was at the loss of what to do. Once again, very important that we look at what the writings say. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, why do you cry to me? Why do you cry to me? Once again, we can kind of, if we really look at this with an open heart and mind, we can really see everything that Abba Yahuwah did, he did it through what? The staff. Touch the water, turns to blood. You do this. He gave him different things. And on one hand, not trying to predetermine or trying to set or set the mind of the Abba. But you have to understand something. When he puts something in our hands, I truly believe, and this is just my personal belief, that when he gives it to us, he actually is looking for us to ask, can I use it for this? Can I use it for that? I see this as an obstacle, but I see this as a means that I can use this to help us get across. If it could turn water into blood, then perhaps it could do something to make this, cease, go up, something. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
And so I believe that it is a means to help us to expand our belief. Because it's just an instrument. We know there was no power in the staff, but we know there is power in the name of the Abba and in the relationship that we have with him. Right. And so it is safe to say, he says, why cry unto me? And he says to tell the children of Yasharal to go forward. You start thinking, come on now, don't you start getting, fickle on me. Don't you start digressing and believing that here you are at a sea, the Reed Sea, and now I'm going to leave you here after I've done all this? You think I would leave you at this place after I brought you to this place? No. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So it's important that we understand, even in our time, once again, how do we assess that, and how do we relate to it in our time? The Abba's not going to bring you to an obstacle and not give you the means to get out of it or get through it. Right. He will never do that. This is so important for us to understand. Why is it important for us to understand? Because so many of us lose belief because something that we ask him to do doesn't happen. Right. And then the first thing we say, well, he can't be real. He doesn't listen or he doesn't hear us. No, he hears us. But you have to understand, you have to have a relationship with him. It's like going to the bank to make a withdrawal and you ain't never deposited anything in there. Right. What you expect to be in there? Well, I did have $1 in there. That ain't going to accumulate no interest. You got to have more than $1 in an account unless you're going to have it in there about 50,000 years. You have about 100 or 1,000, and it has to be an account with interest on it. If it's an interest-free account, you get no money on it. Because that is not, because anytime you get interest, it is recorded as income. Right. Coming in or income, coming in money. So it is looked at by the government as income. So when we deal, and I don't use it in a frivolous way, so when we communicate with the Abba, it can't be sporadic. Right. It has to be consistent. Because we have to build. Because let me tell you something. He knows everything about us, and we have to make sure that our lives, he can trust us. Right. That he can trust us. We can trust him, but can he trust us? Right. That's important for us to understand. Are y'all following? Yes. Very important. And that's once again my personal belief that he uses these things so we will move and believe. That they go forward as a reward for their ancestors and their own merit and belief in Yahuwah. The sea will be no barrier to their advance. They were to go on step by step until they reached the shore of the sea, which would divide for them. They will go forward. Yahuwah assured Moshe that the Yasharites would obey his command. Once again, you got to look at that as well. Abba Yahuwah had to give them understanding that this is your way. You're looking at the sea and then you're trying to figure out how we're going to get across that. Now, once it opens up, how can we be sure that the water's not going to fall on us and kill us? You have to understand with a with feeble-minded people and fearful people, everything becomes a major obstacle, even though you see the miracles before you.
Right. Right.
Oh, if we get on here, are we going to sink in the mud? Oh, is this water? Are we going to get wet? Are we going to drown? Are we going to die? Are we going to get out here and then the Abba kills us because of our foolishness? Are we going to make it across, or are they going to kill us in here and throw us in the water? Are we going to slip and fall and bust our heads? You come up with every worst scenario. It's the truth.
Right. Right.
This is why we have to cast down every evil imagination that tries to exalt itself against the knowledge of the Abba. We have to cast it down.
Yes.
Because if we don't cast that down, we'll be traumatic, and we won't even take the first step to go forward.
Right.
We'll be stuck right there and won't move forward. So you have to understand, he had to assure him they're going to follow you. You have to do this though in order for them to follow you. Over the sea, the preposition al is to be rendered towards and not on. Moshe was to wave his rod towards the sea. And the moment he did this, Yahuwah would cause an east wind to come, which would part the waters. So they were to it is to be rendered towards and not on. So Moshe was to wave his rod towards the sea. So they were going to not walk on the water, but they were going to walk through the water.
That's right.
You follow me?
Yes.
They were going to do this. And so it like I say, dealing with building belief. Verse 17, go in after them. The Yasharites could have outflanked the sea, but Yahuwah deliberately led them by that way to bring it about that the Mitzrayim should be drowned in the sea. Once again, the last plague. Pharaoh was the last plague. So he had to be dealt with as such. Verse 18, the Mitzrayim shall know. Those of them who remain behind in Mitzrayim will be moved to repentance when they hear what befell the others. Once again, this is why when you look at a lot of people in commit, you have to ask the question, has anybody alluded to you all what really happened in Mitzrayim? Then why are y'all still trying to pull stuff out of there? It no longer exists in that frame. Are y'all following?
Yes.
Verse 19, the incident described in verses 19 must have taken place before the command was given to the Yasharites to go forward. And the verb should be translated as pluralfex, had removed and had gone. Pluralfex. Had removed and had gone. The Malach of Yahuwah. The Malach journeyed in the cloud, and not as some erroneously interpret that by Malach the cloud is meant. It was the Malach who guided the pillar of cloud in front of the Yasharites. So they actually had two main things there, because I heard that too, that the Malach was the cloud, but the Malach guided the cloud. Just like you think of a spinning top, that's why I see it. You know, you have a spinning top and you hold it, and you pushing it back, and then you fold it, and you're trying to make sure it stay in that place and so forth. So you can kind of see, or even a yo-yo. You know, when you do a yo-yo and you take it down and you walk the dog and all the rest of that stuff, and you see it and it stays, and then you pull it back up. You can kind of, I can see it in that manner, being in that way. And it is so. Went behind them to separate the Yashariite camp from the Mitzrayim, and to serve as a protection against the arrows and missiles of the Mitzrayim, to darken the approach to the Yasharites, to soften the bed of the sea, and to render it even more impassable for the Mitzrayim. Removed from before them, it did not depart on this occasion, but removed itself to the rear of the Yashariite camp to intensify the darkness for the Mitzrayim. And you have to understand that right there would have been enough. You've already experienced black darkness when you can feel. And then you see this darkness, and then you still go pursue. But remember, Yahuwah hardened his heart, and his people that were with him were hardened as well. Because the more they clung to him and his beliefs, the more they ran and followed him. Stood behind them, behind the Yasharites, and behind the pillar of fire. Verse 20, and it came. The subject of the verb is the Malach. He placed himself at the head of the two pillars to guide them. The cloud and the darkness. The dark cloud buried the way for the Mitzrayim. The light by Layla. The pillar of fire illuminated the way for the Yasharites, and this enabled them to pass through the sea. One came not near. One camp did not draw near to the other, because in thick darkness One can only walk slowly and haltingly. The Mitzrayim were not able to approach the Yasharites. So when we know that sneaking up at night, cutting somebody's throat, you can't see it. You groping through the dark. This is not worth it. Verse 21, a strong wind, a strong east wind, not just any wind, a strong east wind. Yahuwah brought about the marvelous event in a natural way. He caused a strong east wind to blow, which dried up and congealed the waters and hardened the bed of the sea. All the night, even while the Yasharites were crossing, the wind blew. So that means, if you've ever seen in the movies, they sloshing in mud, they getting all dirty. No, they will cross on what? Dry land, as he said so.
That's right.
Everybody will say we want to make it realistic. We'll stick with the writings, and it is realistic.
Exactly.
It is real. That's as real as it gets. You can't get any realer. And the water kind of gelled up, and they walked on dry ground. So they didn't have to worry about getting their shoes. Wait. Did he step too hard in the mud? Somebody help get him stuck out the mud. No incidents of that nature. Okay, we're bringing the wagon or the chariot across, and we got all this on it. We got some of the elders. We got the mothers and the babies. So what's happening? Oh, we stuck. Can y'all get something? Now we got to pry them loose out of the mud. Come on. No. Now, you have to understand, I use a lot of analogies. That's just like saying, Yahuwah Baruch me with this car, but the interest rate is 28%. That's not a Baruch. It's not. Because the interest rate, even on a $10,000 car, is half of that. So you end up paying double for the car, what the vehicle is worth. Trust me, I know. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So that's not a Baruch. It's an opportunity for you to get something. But a Baruch is knowing what your credit score was, and you have to get it. And they say we only gonna charge you 5%. That's a Baruch. Are you following me?
Yes.
Because then that only adds, nickels onto the dollar, and actually helps you to pay it off faster, and your payments won't be that much. But I do not encourage financing anything.
That's right.
I don't. I don't, because I truly believe debt-free living is the best way.
That's right.
Best way and only way, debt-free living. All right. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
All right. Excuse me. Now, they went on dry ground, and all night, even as they went across, the wind blew. So you can imagine the smell, and it was warm, probably nice, like a tropical wind blowing. Upon the dry ground. That is the congealed slime of the bed of the sea. So it wasn't slimy, because anybody understands the bottom. When we were in California, we would go to the Bay Area. When the water would go out, because after a while, before the water rises, it goes out, and you can walk it, and you see the rocks. Step on them rocks if you want to. Them rocks will throw you down like a mad, like you were there fighting karate. I just slipped and fell on many times on that what is it, the seaweed and all that stuff, and it is slimy. And you're thinking, why is it so slimy? But it is slimy at the bottom. It's slimy, and you walking and you stepping on the rocks, and you have boots on. Step in between the rocks. So them rocks, that's not that's not dependable. Because you step on one thing, you gonna jump to the next one. Man, them rocks will have you like a ping, like a the pinball, you all over, like bing bong, all over. But it's slimy. So he congealed it so it wouldn't be slimy. So watch it. So when they're walking, they're not slipping, they're not falling, they're not losing anything. They're not losing their momentum, they're not losing their pace.
Right.
They're constantly keeping that momentum and that pace, because remember, they're trying to get across, but they're not running. They're walking. Right. Okay?
Yes.
Now, the waters, a wall unto them. The waters on either side of the Yasharites froze and became like two solid walls, but the moment they passed, these melted. Now you have to understand, there's also a saying that there were 12 passages when the water subsided, that there were 12 paths for each tribe to go through. So as they went, the tribes, they went across the dry land and through the Reed Sea with their tribes. So there was no pushing, and there was no, we always see them all single file and stuff. But according to some theologians, that when Abba Yahuwah did it, he did it but there were 12, almost like 12 passages or gates that they all went through. And that way the tribes, which would help it move a little more expeditiously, is that they had the 12 openings for each tribe. The morning watch, the Layla was divided into 3 periods termed watches, and the last was known as the morning watch. Yahuwah, that is the Malach, the messenger designated as the sender, looked forward. The verb generally signifies looking with the intention of doing evil. Yahuwah looked to destroy the camp of the Mitzrayim. Now you have to understand, whenever you get into terms and you're dealing with the Jewish perspective, whenever judgment is rained upon a person, even if it is from Abba Yahuwah giving them their just due reward, sometimes they would label it as an evil act. We know this is not an evil act. Are y'all following me? Yes. This was their just what? Reward. Are y'all following me? Yes. This was their just reward. All right. Now, through the pillar of fire. By the pillar of fire, it explains that Yahuwah made the 2 pillars the agents which threw the Mitzrayim into confusion. The pillar of cloud made the bed of the sea like clay, and the pillar of the fire heated up so that the hoofs of the horses fell off. By means of hail and flashes of lightning between the pillars, discomforted through into confusion by depriving them of their senses, by bringing upon them many kinds of ailments. So you have to understand, there was a lot going on in that and on that path. This is why the writings tell us you don't want to fall in the hands of an angry power, which is our power. You don't want to make him angry. Never, ever, ever. We want to comply and we want to follow all that he has put before us. Why? Because we want to ensure that we are doing everything that he has commissioned and commanded us. And it is so. All right. At this time, we are going to take an intermission so that we can take our time of lunch and give you a time to take lunch, ruminate, and chew on what you have received thus far. I pray you will come back and be with us at 8:05. Be back with us for the conclusion of the matter as we continue to finish this out. Abba Yahuwah willing, we hope to see you in the place. I want you to remember, keep your head up, keep your shoulders squared, and keep your heart and your feet in and upon the Torah, because you can't go wrong when you adhere to his instructions. I am Aliyah Yasharal, and I am the leader of Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom Hebraic Belief Congregation, located in South Carolina. Yes, we're loaded with truth. I want you to remember, here at Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom Hebraic Belief Congregation, this is the place where
the Torah does the body excellent.
Until next time, may Abba Yahuwah Baruch Atah and keep you in his shalom until we meet again. I also want you to remember that you've been touched by Champion TV, a place where the champions reside, and it is so.
And it is so.
It is so.